All right, you've had some practice today with area of shaded figures, watched a video, done some Google Slides practice, and now your second video is about area of composite, or also known as compound figures. All right, so if you take a look at this picture here, it kind of looks like an L, capital L, laying on its side. And we can see that it's not just one rectangle. If we go ahead and draw a line in it, it's easy to see it as two separate rectangles. We've got the smaller one up top and a really long one down here. So we can call this figure A and this B. So we're going to learn in this video how to find the area of this entire shape by finding the individual areas. All right, so here's that figure again. I don't think that's real clear. I'm going to label that again, A and B. Notice we've drawn a line to separate the two. So let's find the area of rectangle A first. So when I look at rectangle A, I notice, of course we know our formula, is area equals the length times the width. Well, I see that line right there is 6, but what is my width? This is a little bit tougher. I see a 13 right here, but what I notice is this 13 is that entire like kind of squiggle line right there, and I'm not looking for that entire line. I'm only looking for a part of it. So let's think about what we know here. I can see right here, I'll use a different color, that this is 4, okay? That means that bottom part is 4. So if the whole thing is 13, I know part of it is 4, what would this part be right here? And all I'm doing right there is saying 13 minus 4 to get 9, because would you agree that 9 and 4 is equal to 13? Okay, so now I know that my length is 6, my width is 9. 6 times 9, of course, is 54, and this is centimeters squared. Okay, again, this is for rectangle A. How about rectangle B? Well, again, for rectangle B, we have a rectangle, which is the area equals length times width. I can see this long line down there is 24. That's my length. How about my width? Well, this one was easy, right? We already knew it's just the 4. So I have 24 times 4. And I get 96. All right, I'm going to erase a lot of stuff here because I've got a lot going on. Okay, so, whoops. We said that B was 96. And A, of course, which I just erased, sorry, it was 54. What do you suppose we're going to do with those two numbers? Remember with the shaded figures, we had to subtract. With the compound or the composite, we're going to combine. So we're combining the 96 and the 54. When we add those up, we get 150 centimeters squared, because it's the small rectangles area plus the large rectangles area. Let's try some more. Okay, so I'm looking at this shape and not quite sure what to do with it. Let's take a look. If it's not already divided for you, maybe you need to go from this to drawing a line in here so you can easily see the two shapes. Now I see that I have a rectangle and I have a triangle. Whoops. So let's just look for a moment at these pictures here. Obviously I've added the dotted line, but something else I notice. I notice I have a 14 down here and an 8. And those numbers certainly were not written down here. Down here I had a 22, so where are we getting these? Well, hopefully you can see the 14 is coming from the 14 that was written up here. We see these lines are parallel. All right, let's talk about this 8. Remember, we knew this entire portion was 22 based on that picture. If we draw that line down and cut it, we see we have 14 here. So 22 minus the 14 gave me the 8 right there. So I think it's very helpful when you have a figure where you've got to draw the line in and kind of separate the two shapes, as we've done here with our dotted line, you also go in and relabel some things. So I went in and added the 14, and I went in and added the 8. I also went ahead and added the 12 right here, because I could see that was parallel, so I knew they were both 12. All right, let's actually solve this now. So let's start with our area of our rectangle. We know it's length times width. What are we plugging in for that? Well, my length is 14. My width is 12. So I have 14 times 12. I'm going to grab a calculator. Remember, you can use a calculator on this unit. That's just fine. So we've got 14 times 12, and I get 168. I'm also going to write that in my figure, nice and large. All right, let's move to our area of a triangle. Remember, the area of a triangle is the base times the height, and divide that by 2. So do we know what the base is? Right there, we can see that it's 8. How about the height? That's our dotted line. Remember, when you measure height, you're straight up and down. You don't stand at a diagonal. Okay, so we have 12, and we're going to divide that by 2. 8 times 12 is 96. Divided by 2, we get 48. Now remember, we're looking at this combined. That means we are adding these. When I add these, I get 216. Need my unit of measurement, centimeters squared. That's the area of the entire figure. All right, let's look at another one here. We have a rectangle and we have a triangle. So let's see what we know here. Well, I know my rectangle is going to be length times width. Do I know my measurement of this line right here? It's not labeled, and when I look up here, I see 20. But I notice the 20 seems to be saying it goes from this end right here all the way down here. And I want it to stop right there. Well, I notice this portion of it follows in line with that, and that was what? 7. So if I know that was 20, the whole thing is 20, this portion of it is 7, what does that leave me with? That leaves me with a 13. So my area of my rectangle is going to be 13 times my width, which is 7. Let's see what we have there. 13 times 7 gives me 91 inches squared. All right, let's talk about our triangle here. We know that's base times height divided by 2. Let's see. Well, my height is that dotted line. That's 7. I know I'm going to divide by 2. What's my base? Remember, my base and my height form that 90-degree angle right there. So I know this portion right here in green, that's my base. It's not labeled, but I can see the line that's parallel to it is 7. All right, well, that's kind of hard to see, isn't it? So I have 7 times 7, which is 49. I'm going to divide that by 2. Well, when I do that, I get a decimal. I get 24.5. And that's okay if we end up with a decimal. That happens sometimes. This is inches squared. So to combine all of that, I've got the 91 here. I've got the 24.5 here. What am I doing with these numbers? I'm adding them up. So let's go ahead and do that. And I get, scoot this over a little bit, 115, 24.5 plus the 91, I get, again, 115.5 inches squared. All right, let's look here at another one. I don't have any lines separating it. So this is where you've got to take the time to go in and separate into two separate shapes. Now I see I have a rectangle, and I'm going to have a triangle. Okay, let's start with our rectangle. I know that I am using length times width. Let's see, this one's actually pretty easy for me, right? We've got the length right here is 8. How about our width? Right here at 6. So 6 times 8, 48, plus whatever our triangle is. All right, well, our triangle, of course, is base times height divided by 2. Let's see what we know. I notice that is not a 90-degree angle, so I'm not going to use that 4 centimeters. That's not going to be my height or my base. My height is going to have to come right there, and it's not labeled. Is there a way I can figure it out? Well, again, I know all along the bottom, in other words, from this tip to down here, that's 12. And I know a portion of it, this wiggle line, is 8. So 12 minus the 8, aha. That gives me 4 right there for my height. What's my base? My base is that dotted line. Again, not labeled, but I notice that 6 is parallel, so my base is 6. When I solve this, I have 24 divided by 2, which of course gives me 12. Remember, we're combining these. It's a compound figure. 48 plus 12 is 60. So my entire figure is 60 centimeters squared. All right, at this point, you guys are going to do some practice on Google Slides, and then you're going to take a formative check. Now remember, your formative check is area of compound shapes as well as area of shaded figures. All right, make sure you do that practice first.